Tonight on Food Investigators, slicing through the glossy wrapping to help you choose the bread that's best for you. And what's about to be added to your daily bread.
And we don't know what effect this may have.
My name's Joe Avati. I've got an honours degree in food science and I'm here as your average Joe. I'm Italian and I just love my food.
Choosing our daily bread can be a confusing and complex decision. There are entire supermarket aisles dedicated to the endless array of choices. But what is the difference between white, wholemeal and whole grain? And are the more expensive varieties really worth the extra dough? Joe Avati slices through the marketing to give us the answers.
Dating back as far as Neolithic times, bread is the world's oldest processed food. Throughout history, bread has been one of the most popular daily staples. But these days, bread has become far more complex. Walk down any supermarket aisle and the range of bread that's available can actually make you dizzy. So how do you know which one's good for you, which one's more nutritious, and what's actually in it? Well, the answer is not on the cleverly written front label, but in the small print on the back. First up, let's look at what's inside. Wholemeal, whole wheat, multigrain or whole grain. Which type of bread is the healthiest? It all revolves around most bread's key ingredient, wheat. The wheat kernel has 3 layers. The outer layer of bran, which is fibre-rich. The middle layer, called the endosperm, which contains starch and protein. And the wheat germ in the centre is rich in B vitamins and minerals. Whole grain and wholemeal breads contain all 3 layers of the wheat in varying degrees, so they're stacked with fibre, vitamins and minerals. But white bread is made with refined flour, which means that the healthy inner and outer layers have been stripped away. So in theory, any bread type starting with the term whole is actually healthier for you. But be aware, you might not be getting the whole story on the label.
Some breads calling themselves whole grain or mixed grain might sound like they're packed full of fibre, but that's not always the case. Some are made with white flour with a smattering of grains instead of using wholemeal flour. So it's best to check the back of the label to see what you're getting.
A good rule of thumb for choosing the best bread is that it should contain at least 3 grams of fibre per slice. But what about all those varieties which have added this or that? Breads enriched with goodies like omega-3, calcium and protein. Are they as good for you as they sound on the label?
Fortified breads won't do you any harm. In fact, some of the added ingredients such as omega-3 have proven health benefits. But for my money, your best bet is bread with natural nutrients.
And there are much higher natural sources of omega-3 than what you'll get in a few slices of enriched bread. You might have heard lately that the federal government has legislated to force large bread manufacturers to include folic acid or folate in their loaves. So what is it? And why do we need it in our daily bread? Folic acid is a synthetically produced version of the naturally occurring B vitamin called folate. Folate is essential to women in the months prior to and immediately following pregnancy.
Women need folic acid often in the very early stages of pregnancy before they're even aware that they're pregnant. Education campaigns encouraging women to take folic acid supplements have been helpful. Adding folic acid to the food supply voluntarily by manufacturers have also helped, but the mandatory fortification requirement will provide even more assistance to try to maximise the number of women who are getting the right levels of folic acid.
We get folate naturally through leafy green vegetables like broccoli and spinach. Pregnant mums need at least 400 micrograms a day. And health authorities feel many aren't getting enough in their diet, hence the mandatory fortification. So bread is about to become the new delivery agent.
It's been shown to help prevent up to around 70% of neural tube defect pregnancies, like spina bifida.
The question is, should the rest of us be subjected to this dose of folic acid?
There's been some literature that has discussed that the folic acid may not be used in the usual way that folate would normally be transported across the intestine, goes into the bloodstream and then taken up in the liver. But it may be that some folic acid is transported and circulated, remains circulating in the bloodstream until it is then needed by the liver. And we don't know what this effect this may have.
So what should you do if you want to avoid folic acid?
It's important to remember that folate is good for us. It produces red blood cells and prevents anemia. But if you're concerned about mandatory fortification, you do have other options. Only mass-produced breads will be fortified. And these days, there are plenty of organic breads available made by small, independent bakeries which won't be fortified.
Which leads to something I've always wondered. How are those specialty and hand-baked breads different from the mass-produced loaf? Are they any better for you? And worth the extra dough? To find out, I visited artisan baker Michael Chermer. So Michael, tell us a little bit more about your bread versus the commercially produced bread.
Preservative, no preservatives. That's the main reason of it. Pure ingredients, flour, water, lard, culture, all those things.
Can you tell us the differences between organic bread and the normal bread?
Again, it's the ingredients. Organic bread is you using organic flour and the starter from the culture rather than normal white flour, bleach flour. There's only one improver. Again, it's not additive. It's just to hold the dough better. And there is gluten in the flour. Most of the flour's got gluten. But again, it's more in the flour rather than adding preservative. It's already built into it.
But the downside to preservative-free breads is that they don't last as long before going mouldy. So what about mould on your bread? Is it poisonous? Well, some moulds are toxic. So even if there's some of the lovely green or white stuff on part of the loaf, don't eat the other slices. Mould on the crust means you shouldn't cut that bit off and eat the rest. There's likely to be mould inside that you can't see.
A lot of us think that by keeping bread in the fridge, it can last longer. But that's not the case. It can actually go stale quicker because of the airflow from the opening and closing of the door. The best thing for your bread is to make sure it's wrapped up tightly, stored at room temperature in a dry place, such as a bread box.